Hi, Fumnanya. I think we
Okay,
can get started
yes,
now. Yeah,
yes, we can definitely. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Just to confirm, can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great, great. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the product chat with Fumnanya and Tobi. It's a pleasure to have you guys on the call today, and I'm really excited that this is happening in May. For everyone who is joining for the first time, we've been having this product charts for the last 4 months. So we had one in January, February, in March, in April, and now we're having one in May. And this is where we invite other product professionals to have a conversation with us. And so far, it has been really insightful. If you have been joining the last couple of sessions, you would definitely agree. So today we have Tobi Lufadeju on the call, and it's such a pleasure to have her. And before we go into any of the things that we need to discuss, I think it's also really important to say that if you want to, of course, introduce yourself on the chat, you can do so. And you can also follow each other on in case you want to share your LinkedIn link, your LinkedIn profile, the URL to your LinkedIn profile. You can do that as well. Just like connect with people here. So before I go into the um, talk for today, I'd just like to do a bit of introduction with Toby. Toby has spent over 4 years building products at gaming, health tech, and fintech startups. I experience spans project, product, and operations management roles. She currently manages product operations and growth for Paystack's terminal business. Toby is constantly growing her hobbies and skill sets and is currently learning to play tennis and speak French. Hi, Toby. Welcome.
Hi,
How are you?
Fumnanya.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
yeah. I'm so glad that you are here. I'm really excited. So tell me, how's tennis going?
Tennis is going well. This is
Yeah.
my third month. I've had to
Mm-hmm.
take a break because my coach is playing professional
Oh,
tournament in Abuja. So yes, I'm
wow.
on a break for the whole of me, but it's been quite interesting and
Mm-hmm.
hectic as well.
Wow. I can imagine actually. I want to start playing tennis. But my uncle invited me, but I haven't gone yet because of time. But I should actually do it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you should.
it's really really cool to have you here. And of course, have you guys heard from the bio? Toby has some really serious experience. Like when I was even reading it, I was scared. I was like, "Whoa, she has been everywhere," and that's really fantastic. I guess one of the first things I would say, I mean, can you just share your journey and experience um, in the field of product operations? How's your journey and experience been so far?
Okay. First of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's really great to have all of you show up. Regarding my experience, so I started my startup experience at it's a very small company called TQs in Ibadan. So I did like project management, but then it was a day one startup, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I got to see all sorts of aspects of product management because like the company was much smaller and allowed for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't a product manager then. And
Mm-hmm.
then afterwards, a couple of years later, I then pivoted to become a product manager, right, at Reliance Health, right? So I did that for about a year, and then there was an operations role open, which basically allowed me to be on the other side, right? So figuring out what the business needed to do to grow, right? As opposed to being in charge of the actual development and the engineering teams and all of that. So I wanted to take that opportunity to see what it would be like to be on the other end of the spectrum, right? And so currently, my role at Paystack then combines a bit of that. So one, I'm embedded in a product team, right? So
Yeah.
I work actively with like engineers, designers, there's like user feedback, there's
Mm-hmm.
sprints, there's all of those things that happen with product management, right? But instead of being responsible for instance, like the tasks that will be done, or
Yeah.
assigning them, or making sure that things are completed.
Mm-hmm.
I work alongside a product manager to one, do some of that research ahead,
Mm-hmm.
help in fact gathering, and deciding what we need to do. All of that before bringing it to the product team, and then as well, because I work closely with like the support team, sales teams, like whatever teams support the operations of the product, right? So I have quite a lot of knowledge about how the product works, what our customers think about it, right? So like all that insight is usually very helpful
Yeah.
in deciding what we need to optimize, what we need to build next, etc.
Yeah. Wow. That seems like a lot. How do you juggle all of that? Because I can imagine you work cross-functionally, from various teams, from sales to customer success to maybe R&D. Of course, this is assuming that Paystack has an R&D team. You work across all of these teams. How are you able to juggle all of that, being like in the center circle, just to ensure that everything works as it's supposed to be?
So I'm not sure, there's no quick fix. I think it just takes time to make sure
Yeah,
that you build strong processes. Again, with anything operations, like you have to think about, is this the optimal process for doing things?
yeah,
So one of the first challenges was to learn a lot about one, the product, and then all the units that service us. But also
hmm,
in becoming a repository of knowledge, you don't want to build over dependence,
yeah,
right? So how can I optimize something such that if our legal or if a sales team needs something from the legal team, I don't need to be in the middle. If
yeah,
someone needs something from support or from the engineers, like I don't need to be in the middle. So
hmm,
it's one, getting to work with all these teams individually, figuring out how their work interfaces with my product,
yeah,
and then building sometimes individual and then sometimes interconnected processes that remove me from the center of all of these interactions
yeah,
for the most part.
yeah. So basically, building systems, very
Yeah,
important.
very,
I really agree with building systems because that's something I don't see often in most companies, where systems are not the paramount thing, and people are always looking for the product manager, looking for this, looking for that. But the
so I
system,
still experience, sorry, I still experience like quite a bit of that,
yeah,
right? But I think that something that is important is to one, have things documented. So
yes,
if you want to build a system outside of yourself, you need to think, one, know the people, know all the things that they need you for, right?
hmm,
And have the solution somewhere. And then there are a
yeah,
bunch of no code tools or low code tools that can be built. So with many companies, it's, we don't have the engineering resources to do things,
hmm,
which is frustrating. But then there's Airtable, there's Zapier, there's Jira, there's Slack, there's so many things that
yeah,
you can basically use to automate stuff and bring yourself out of the middle. So I
yeah.
think that's something that should be considered.
Definitely, I do agree. But in terms of product operations, why product operations? What led you essentially to pursue a career in this domain? Did you see an opportunity and you said, you know what, I'm just going to grab it, and nothing is going to stop me? Or was it a case of sheer curiosity and then you kind of decided this is where I need to be?
So there are two parts to the story, right? The first part was after being a product manager and dealing with like, this server is down, that server is down, this engineer quit, there's this bug that we're resolving for 2 months. Like I done so much of that, and
Mm,
was like, okay, you know what? I'm not close enough to the business as I would like to be, right?
hmm,
I want to be in the middle of like the numbers, in the middle of the growth, and less of this API is working or not working, right?
mm,
So I was figuring like how I knew I wanted to work in product, I wanted to be in a startup. Like I understood like what I liked, but
yeah,
I needed to be just close enough to, have input, but then not too close that I'm directly responsible for things.
mm-hmm,
So there was that part where I was searching for something that was the right fit.
yeah,
And then with Paystack, I started to have a couple of conversations. So I knew, okay, I wanted to work in B2B fintech. I was clear about that,
yeah,
right? I like Paystack. So I started that conversation to just see, what was going on,
mm-hmm,
right? And where I could provide value. And then
yeah,
we spoke about, a product management role or the operations in the terminal team. So terminal team was newer. It hadn't launched publicly yet. And
mm,
I figured, this is something that a lot of people will use.
Mm-hmm.
the numbers we had. There's so many moving parts, right?
Yeah.
And then also outside of managing internal stakeholders, there's also all the regulations that come with working in fintech, right? And so I
Yeah.
felt all of this would be new, and it would be a good opportunity to, one, again, be close enough to the product, but kind of keep my distance and focus on other things that are more business related, right? And
Sure.
so that's how I moved into product operations.
Wow. That's amazing. So I guess I should ask the holy grail question. What is product operations and how does it work in Paystack?
Right. So again, product operations, like product management, is one of those things where it is whatever your company calls it. Um, because again, there are like 10 different types of product management, but
Yeah.
generally, like operations is an arm of product management that basically helps with some more operations or business sides of the product development. So um just to confirm, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Definitely.
Right. So with a PM in a startup, for instance, there's like a possibility that you're your own content marketer, you're the one your own user researcher. You have to wear multiple hats, right?
Yeah.
But having product operations then brings out a part of this product management where, in some cases, there's someone else thinking for you.
Hmm.
Right. So in terms of what do we do, why, what do our numbers look like, all of that research and analysis that goes either ahead of building a product or even maintaining and optimizing the product and making sure that you're on the right path. It
Mm-hmm.
could also, so that's like generally around. In Paystack, because of what we do, for instance, like CBN has to approve something, give us this license, a bank needs to do something. We don't have the license to do everything, right? So
Of course.
some of that is also figuring out, are we licensed to do this?
Mm-hmm.
The can say, okay, it has to be a bank that will do this, or it has to be PTSA. Are we licensed to do this? If we're not, what would it take to get that license? Or who do we partner with to help us with this part,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or based on all of these partners that we have, what do we need to do to take out maybe one or two middlemen and then become operationally efficient by ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So if we're also thinking about building something, product operations would also be fine. Do
Yeah.
we build or do we buy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do we white label?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to do that, who are the partners we could probably work with?
Mm-hmm.
What are their costs? What is the timeline? What does this mean for our engineering team?
Mm.
So, having all of those conversations, getting all of those details necessary to make a product decisions are the kinds of things that that compose product operations in my role at Paystack. Now,
Mm.
because we have a physical device, which is the terminal itself, so or a POS, as you may know it, there is now an additional layer of operations that just comes along with managing a physical device and getting it from one place to another, right? And
Yes.
so internally, there are all those systems that, okay, fine. There's inventory management, procurement, there's like our logistics, there's support. There are all
Mm-hmm.
those teams that work together to support all those that area of our operations, and then that is something that I also cover.
Fantastic. That's great. I'm learning a lot, just so you know, from this call. So that's one of the things why I'm really excited because I know that product ops relatively in our tech ecosystem in Nigeria is not really prevalent, and finding someone who embodies that role, especially here in Nigeria, is really fantastic. So I think I should say kudos to your work with Paystack as well. So you've worked in various startups. Like I said, when I saw your bio with gaming and health tech and fintech startups, I was really impressed, so to say. But of course, I know that there are benefits and challenges with switching industries as well as switching product roles. So let's start with industries. What were some of the benefits and challenges that you experienced switching from one industry to another? And then we can now go to roles, the benefits and challenges that you face switching from from project management to product operations.
Okay, all right. So first, then I'll start with why I switched. right? So with Paystack, I was clear I wanted to work in fintech, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just see what was going on in that space, right? But when I worked in health tech, it was basically who was going to hire me as a PM and wasn't requiring like 5 years of PM experience. So, it's a jungle where you're trying to get a PM job,
It's in
right?
the
So,
jungle.
that sense, I wasn't very specific about health tech, but it felt like something I could do anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I took on the role. Now with and then before that it was gaming. Now with the experience has been, I think the advantage is one, you get to know a bunch of things, right? You get to learn a lot about different industries.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, also meet different people. All of that is good. The disadvantage is that depending on how long you stay and the industry that you're in, you may not get to build as much expertise,
Mm-hmm.
right, as
Yeah.
right. And then also different industries have different levels of regulation. So for instance, at when I was working in health tech, it didn't matter much to me what the minister of health said, quite frankly. There were very little things that happened in my 2 years there
Yeah.
that affect my day to day, right? But
Mm-hmm.
here it's, oh, CBN released a circular on something, and even if I didn't know, someone would send it because like your entire business model may just be
Crumble.
cancelled. Like
Yes.
you never know, right? So having to like put so there's being in the space, but then there's also the extra effort that I could sometimes take depending on where you are to learn more about that industry and the regulations and what happens, etc. So I'll say one of the challenges has been getting up to speed. And then when you join a new job, there's always this difficulty of balancing, trying to come in and show that you are not a mistake and you can hit the ground running.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also need to give yourself space to learn, to get used to things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So both the new company and the new industry in this case. So that was a bit of a challenge, having to constantly remind yourself, or rather myself, that it's okay to take some time to get used to what you're doing and what you're doing well,
Oh man. Sorry, I'm on a call. Can you? I'm on a call. Can you go? Hi, I'm
I
back.
think I lost you for a minute. Okay, cool.
No, I was kicked out for a minute, but I'm back now.
All right.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Of course, like I said, you're in product operations. There are definitely some advantages and difficulties. But before we even talk about your advantages and difficulties, why don't you just talk to us about just give us like a simple breakdown or summary of your week as a product ops person.
Um. Okay, that's a bit hard. Um,
Just give us like
so
a summary. I know that every week is. I mean, I know that every day is not even the same. I'm perfectly aware of that. But if you can just give us like a summary of your. Okay, let me not use week. Let me say a day. Maybe that one.
I think a week is I think it's there to think about in terms of a week, right?
Okay.
But what I would things that I would usually do
Mm-hmm.
is one, look at the numbers,
Yeah.
right? So I have a great focus in my role, and everything I'm doing should be driving adoption and volumes, right? In terms of volumes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would usually start off like looking at the numbers, looking at what changes there have been, who was active last week and isn't active this week,
Yeah.
um, who wasn't active and has suddenly become active, and then just like figuring out where we are over like
Mm-hmm.
a span of a week or a month or whatever. So there's that,
Yeah.
and then if there are things that need to be done, I pass it over to someone who supports me to basically then reach out to this merchant. Terminal is a very contact heavy business,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a lot of speaking to people and trying to figure out what is wrong, because again, it's very easy to switch if
Mm-hmm.
someone doesn't like something. So
True.
just making sure that the people who manage these businesses are aware of these relationships, are aware of whatever is going on, and then can sort it out. So there's that part of it. The second part is to think about my projects. So what are the things that we need to get done for the company over the next like 3 months or 6 months, or depending on how it is. So
Sure.
for instance, if there's a new technology that we were testing or we were planning to bring right in line with our terminal or offline payment suite, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll spend some time thinking or having those conversations to say, okay, you know what are the requirements? How do we get this done? What do we need to give you? What do you need to give us? Also
Mm-hmm.
speaking with like the legal team to say, hey, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? So
Yeah.
like there's that part that is very heavy on partnerships and conversations across like whatever multiple projects that we're working on.
Yeah.
I also spend like quite some time talking to each of the teams that I work with. So it
Mm-hmm.
could be maybe 2 or 3 weeks spent with our security team, for instance. So we have
Interesting.
apps that yeah, so we have apps that sit on the terminal, which is what
Yeah.
we use to process the funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in some cases, some people want custom apps.
Yeah.
So for instance, so Tix partners with Paystack, and then Tix Africa sells like tickets on the terminal. So people have all sorts of use cases, right? And then I spent some time talking to the security team, like, okay, if people are to come in for or come in with this kind of use case, what does it take to get their apps on the device? What do they need to know? And then
Mm-hmm.
it's bridging the gap between the security team that okays it, the sales team that sells it,
Mm-hmm.
and then the customer, right? Because what you don't want is the sales team to overpromise, and
Yeah.
then the security team kicks back, and then everybody calls me in the mood, and
Yeah.
you don't want that. So
Yeah.
it's trying to figure out,
Which which
you
which
know,
tends to happen.
yeah, so it's trying to figure out, okay, what is your process,
Mm-hmm.
what would you like to see, right?
Yeah.
What would make your life easy?
Mm-hmm.
And then also then figure out like the communication, the processes, and how to connect that to the customer. So then I
Yeah.
spend some time, like, depending on the team, trying to figure out, how I can have everybody
Mm-hmm.
sort out, like, some whatever blockers it is. So
Yeah.
those are the things I would usually focus on.
Great, great, great. I'm sure you don't attend daily stand-ups.
No, I don't attend. I was invited, but it's kind of optional. So no, I don't attend
You don't
stand-ups.
miss it at all.
No, no.
Okay.
I think it's nice to know.
Yeah.
Another thing that happens is sometimes with stakeholder management, it's
Mm.
possible, especially when the stakeholder is internal, is that someone has an idea, build something because it has to be done, but then
Yeah.
the salespeople or the customer support are not really informed of like what the changes would mean for our customers, right? And so we again I need to know enough so that if there are updates to be made, right,
Mm-hmm.
we can quickly account for that before we just suddenly push things live.
Sure.
But then that doesn't mean stand up every day.
Wow. Great. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So yes, advantages. You've talked about your week, and I'm sure that there are some days where you are like, "Hooray! This has been a fantastic week," and there are some days where, nah, I really don't have this kind of week that I had. So what are the advantages and difficulties that you've experienced? The pros, the cons, the good, the bad, as a product operations person.
So I would say primarily it's one of the things I really like is having one being close enough. Like I said, I wanted to be close enough, but then not be responsible for certain things, right? So one,
Sure.
having the kind of tasks that I wanted to be involved with, right? So I'm talking to external partners. I know a bit of what is going on outside, what is obtainable again, just because like, oh, Paystack already has some of these relationships. So it's easier to ride off on that to start some of these conversations as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
do like that there are different things that I could be working on is, oh, we want to try something new,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and as opposed to it only being your business if it is the specific products you're working on, sometimes if it just falls in a similar line of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance to just know about things, learn about that. So
Mm-hmm.
that is good. Something that is challenging again is working with multiple partners or like teams and then multiple individuals,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's always the need to make sure that you are servicing a group of people properly.
Sure.
You're communicating clearly to people. So if you change, so if, for instance, if finance changes the pricing, right,
Mm-hmm.
while ideally there should be like lines of communications to announce things, right, since it's still my product or some part of it is okay, I need to update this documentation, I need to make sure that support,
Sure.
does this. So I think like managing all of those different stakeholders could sometimes be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I would say working in fintech just generally has been very eye-opening.
Yeah.
You never can tell. Like there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
Figuring out how one thing that you didn't think affected your product actually does affect your product.
Hmm.
Um, so yes, that those are some of the pros and cons.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to be here, right? You wanted to hear. This is what you wanted to do. But yes, of course. Thank you for sharing that. And I think also it kind of like relates to also being like a product manager. Some of those pros and cons that you mentioned is something that I also experience sometimes, and especially in the parts where you have to like put out customer fires. The place where there's like an overpromise, and then you have to come in and sort of like sort that out as well. So yeah, just to take a little pause and welcome those who are joining us for the who are joining us on this call. Um, really appreciate everyone who is joining us and who keeps coming in. If you're just joining us, currently having the product chat with Toby, and we're talking about product operations and how it has been so far, and of course, if she has any advice we that can help us along the way. So let's go into transitioning. As someone who has transitioned, you've done, two transitions. Is it two or three? Yeah, two. You've done a lot of transitions. Let me just put it like that. You've done industry transitions. You have done role transitions, and that's really amazing so far, being able to do all of that, all of those transitions as well. So the question I would ask is, as someone who has done the transition from product management or to product operations, for people who are thinking about that, what do you think should be the key steps that they should take note of, or what will you basically recommend so that they can successfully navigate this career shift and position themselves as product operations professionals?
Okay, all right. So a bit of a disclaimer just before we go there. Again, like my own recruitment was a bit irregular, because I was already talking to the company actively, and then we worked together to figure out, like, what's the best fit. So it wasn't just a JD that I applied to randomly
Yeah.
online, right? But what I would say was helpful is one already being close to product management, so understanding how things would go, who would be responsible for what.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the recruitment process was also there was a case study, right, which was meant to figure out like how I would think about like processes and building things on top of one another. So if you
Sure.
have any kind of product experience, you would understand. Okay, you start with an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that can be optimized later. Some things like your core tech, shouldn't be taken lightly, because if you make some mistakes, then you have so much of technical debt, and sometimes take forever um,
To fix.
to undo the effects of those things, right?
Yeah.
So something that is helpful is if you've worked in anything product related, it could be customer support, which I think is a fantastic role if you take good advantage of it.
Yeah.
It could be customer support, it could be product management, it could even be like development or being a scrum master and just having like a sense of what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that has been very key to my role is partnership. So in some
Mm.
cases and some companies or teams, you could have a standalone financial partnerships team like we do in Paystack, but in
Yeah.
some teams, sometimes to drive things quicker, just the same way it is with product management. Like you have to do some things yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and so which is part of why I also have like a partnerships aspect of my job. So if you've worked in those kinds of roles where it's been your duty to you know make a connection between like external parties, or basically bring new technology or new methods into the company, I think like those kinds of things are very useful to highlight. So I guess the summary here is whatever skills and experiences that you have are probably relevant.
Mm.
You just need to figure out how to sell the story to whatever product you'll be working on. So something that happens is that you see a company, but you don't know what product you're working on.
Yeah.
Like you just know they're hiring a product manager, a product operations, or and you'll figure it out when you get into. But as much as possible, if you can get a sense of what they do and where it is likely you could be, right,
Mm-hmm.
it helps you to like frame your story and frame your experiences in a way that match like what they could possibly be looking for.
Yeah.
So that's something else. that I would say can be useful in transitioning. And then the last thing I would say is be more focused on the work than on the title. So
Hmm.
it is in some companies, my role is partnerships.
Yeah.
In some, it's just operations. It's not product operations.
Yeah.
In some, my entire job is part of a product manager's job alongside with like the billion things that they do,
Yeah.
right? Um, so you, I would say pay more attention to the role. If there's a JD, just look through things that could be useful. So, for instance, what I see a lot is operations analyst, right, or especially on LinkedIn. And some of the things
Yeah.
that they ask for is we want you to talk to our support team or work with our support team, go through our database and figure out why are behaving a certain way and what we can do to fix that. So that is the general idea behind it. So again, it implies some level of data and research, some level of cross-functional collaboration with different teams,
Mm-hmm.
user research. These are skills that are gotten in multiple ways. Like titles are just titles, right?
Yeah.
Um, so one, you want to think about the idea of what you would like to be doing. But if
Mm-hmm.
Paystack calls it this and another company calls it that,
Mm-hmm.
you may want to be flexible. And also, it's possible to change your title when you enter the company. Like it
True.
happens, a lot of people do it all the time, right? So think about what you would like to do and who will give you what you can do currently to get the kinds of experience that you would need.
Mm-hmm.
And then also what companies or what roles would allow you to practice those things regardless of what it is called.
Great, thank you. I think one particular thing that I said about is selling the story. There's really nothing wrong with selling a story, to be honest. Most people think that oh, you're being like you're basically like being a sellout or some sort. Well, that's just really weird. But it's really really important to go deeper, understand what that company sort of wants to achieve and how you can plug in instead of going generic. That does not help at all. And of course, I know that there are a lot of people like are not even probably aware that there's something called product operations uh, in the country, and everyone is chasing a product management role. And sometimes I'll say that when I have a conversation with someone, and I'll be like, from that conversation, you actually should be an operations person from what you're doing, but they are so adamant they want a product management role. But it's so important to understand the skills that you have and how they can help you successfully navigate the shift. So let's talk about collaboration with product teams. Very interesting conversation, and I'm sure you're working in a relatively new team, which is the POS terminal for Paystack. So there's probably a lot of team building, a lot of understanding that has to go through across the teams. So I guess my question would be, how have you been able to successfully navigate working with the product team to ensure that everyone is aligned on strategy and can ensure a smooth execution for all of the things that you want to achieve within that team?
So my relationship with the product team is a little different because one of the things I said I didn't want to do was to drive engineering efforts.
True.
So purposely, I'm not leading like anything regarding like relating to telling the engineering team what our strategy is. Usually, my PM would
Yeah.
do that. But regarding how I relate with them is one, I have a lot of feedback right from talking to people, so I know what is wrong and what we need to fix and what we need to optimize, etc. So
Sure.
there's that. And then I also need to learn from them why some things are the way it is,
Mm.
right? Because when you're talking about someone else's job, you will say, is it not just two?
Mm. Yes.
But then like, when you speak with them, you now hear, oh, there's something about authentication, and to do this, we would expose our security. And then basically approaching it from starting to approach conversation from a place of, I want to learn from you,
Mm-hmm.
has definitely helped.
Yeah.
So like the initial stand-ups that I had to attend, just learn what is going on, who does what, most
Exactly.
importantly,
Mm-hmm.
who does what, because again, it's front end, back end, there's mobile, there's like lots of people doing things. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be sure that if you do need things, you know who to talk to,
Yeah.
you know where to find resources, etc. So those are some of the things that I pay attention to. like in relating with the development team. And then also just being open to asking for things, right? So there are some things that the developer can easily do, but not necessarily anybody's priority. Like it's a big problem for you, but it's a small ask,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes by just asking, hey, would we be able to do this? You can actually solve a big problem. Of course, you look in the PM because there are no more resources to direct,
Yeah.
right? But just having that open communication to say, this is what is going on, guys. What can we do? And
Mm-hmm.
then leaving the PM to then direct the team as they will wish. So I'm not throwing things into Jira and assigning it to random people, but then just
Yeah.
understanding uh, what can be done.
Yeah, I mean, if I had $1 for every time someone told me that, is it not just to, I will be very, very rich. I'll be extremely
Yes,
rich
definitely.
today. But yes, of course, this comes from helping the person to understand how the work is like, and how it goes essentially, and that helps for a smoother collaboration. So I think from what you just
I,
said,
I will add
yeah.
Sorry, I will add that again, one of the disadvantages or something I've struggled with is
Mm-hmm.
also in line with like working in product teams, is also just moving from that place of authority where I would usually have added it to the backlog and put it in the sprint and it will be done.
Yeah.
Right. Because like as the PM, like you make some of those decisions as to what will be done.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I've had to learn a lot more of convincing and a lot more of patience and trying to work around getting things done and sometimes just accepting that things wouldn't be done. So that has been quite a change, right? Going from having authority to having less authority in terms of what gets done when.
Yeah, it's I, that must have been a very big change. I mean, how are
Yes.
you able to really tell yourself that, okay, Toby, this is how it is now. We can't really do anything about what's happening at this particular point in time and all of that. How are you able to encourage yourself?
So I think it was one of those things where it dawns on you slowly.
Mm,
It wasn't really like I just came. It's like, okay, you're not the PM, you're not going to like have any say. It wasn't like that. I
yeah.
would join sprint, stand up, we'll talk about things that need to be done, and sometimes they get done, and then you just realize,
Mm-hmm.
oh, at some point I would get some random piece of information, like I would visit a
Yeah.
merchant and see something, or like someone would just send me an email, it's like, oh, I think this is important,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's like, okay, yeah, this is definitely important.
Yeah.
But according to the backlog, we have XYZ, right? I was like, okay, we'll get to it in like next week. And then we don't get to it next week. We don't get to it in 2 weeks' time, right? And then, that was when it started to occur to me, like, oh, you know what? Like, I knew I was not the PM. I know it's not my resource to direct, but just being used to being able to like have a time frame sort of to say, okay, fine, this thing should be done XYZ.
Yeah.
And so realizing if I can align my most annoying problems to the business's most pressing goals,
Mm-hmm.
that helps everybody,
Yeah.
right? If I can help to reprioritize or give a justification on why we should reprioritize some things along with what is best for the company, the team, the
Mm-hmm.
resources, etc., that's fine. But some
Yeah.
things can't be moved, and that's just it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Wow, really tough lessons to learn from products. Please, if you have any questions for our listeners, please you can leave them on the chat. And because we're getting close to the end of the conversation today, so I guess the final question I'll ask is: do you have any tips that you would like to share for anybody who is looking at product operations and thinking, wow, that should be a delightful career to jump into? Do you have any tips that you'd like to share with anyone who is thinking that way?
I mean, so yeah, I'll just go over some things. One, research and know like what it could look like for you. So
Mm-hmm.
again, you see different articles, they'll tell you different things, but there's a general theme, a theme rather, you'll be working with a product team, you'll be doing certain types of things. So just figure out like, okay, what could this look like? Because it wouldn't always be the same. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like your life, your experiences, those are your stories to tell.
Yeah.
If you wake up and you want to reframe your experiences as something else, as long as you're not lying, please don't lie. But like, if you want to reframe it, like highlight some parts and not highlight some parts of your role,
Mm-hmm.
that's totally fine. Also, there's in you, I think take advantage of opportunities in your company.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to do a certain kind of work and you have access to do it,
Yeah.
right, you may not get the title or the pay initially, but if the goal is to have some kind of experience, even test it out and just see if this kind of work is even nice, or if it's too repetitive, or if it's boring, right? If you have opportunities internally
Mm-hmm.
to try things out, I think one should definitely um take it along and take those opportunities, and continue to build like experience in those things. And again, remember, the title is the most variable part of it,
Yeah.
right? In some places it could be more partnerships, little ops, it could be more ops, little partnership, it could be growth, it could be data, it could be all sorts of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just remain alert, right, and focus on the kinds of stuff that you want to do,
Yeah.
right? And then go ahead to like apply for have those conversations and apply for those jobs when they are available.
Yeah. Wow. That's power packed. Short but power packed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Toby. So William has a question. Hi, good evening. I would like to ask, how did you learn the nitty gritty of the fintech industry after transitioning from another industry?
So disclaimer, I don't know the nitty-gritty of the fintech industry. I'm not sure I know anyone who knows the nitty-gritty. There's a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
What I have done is to learn more about like my side of the business and my product, right? So for instance, like Paystack, we do both online and offline payments, and the offline payments is the newer part of the business.
Sure.
So part of the things that we're thinking is so part of the things that I was thinking is, okay, fine, what does offline payments look like? What are the problems that we have?
Mm-hmm.
What licenses do we need, for instance? So in just being in the company, so when I joined the company, I went through some of the documents that were existing before. We use Notion, so it's easy to find things that were created even before you joined, right? So
Yeah.
I just went through like series of documents. I didn't understand half of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know what a PTSA is or a PTSP or what license we have or all these things, but going over those things, right? And then you
Yeah.
enter a meeting and then you come back, refer to those docs,
Mm-hmm.
and then asking questions. I think that is how I would say I learned about like the things that are more pertinent to my role at the moment. It's just 1 year in fintech. There's still so
Yeah.
much to learn, but I
Yeah.
would say take it little by little and give yourself time to catch up.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Toby. I'll also add that also always use the opportunity to do as much research as you can do. Just spend some time just reading about the industry, what is happening currently in the industry, where's the
Yeah,
industry
definitely.
going to, and what are they thinking about. And I think that will be really helpful for your journey. But before I go into the next questions, so I mean, this might be a very odd question, but like I said, you have moved different industries. So when did you
Okay.
know that it was a particular time to move into a certain industry? Like, did you have like that eureka moment? Like, okay, I think it's time to jump ship into another industry.
So the first couple of times that
Mm-hmm.
I moved when I got the job. That's just it.
Yeah,
I wanted to change my job. I got a job and I moved. There was not much strategy. I just moved when I was tired and there was a good opportunity,
yeah,
right? But with my current role, there was quite a bit of like thinking about it. So I had planned my, I think my 2022 was planned, my 2023 was planned. And so I was looking for like very specific opportunities to one, just even see what like payments is like, see what fintech is like, and then again Paystack, right?
yeah.
And so because I had plans of like things I wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
at certain times, it was easy to figure out, okay, you only have between this time and this time
Mm-hmm.
to get this thing done, right? And so then I now started to figure out, okay, fine. So where do I need to go to? Or I started to have these conversations that could eventually lead me to like the role I have at the moment. So
Yeah.
that's how it works for me.
Very interesting. Thank you for that, Toby.
Yeah.
So Abiola has a question. Thank you for the session, Toby. It has been really insightful. I'd like to know what you enjoy most about product operations. Also, what has been your personal learning points since you ventured into product ops?
All right. So I think what I like the most is the variety of things that I get to do. Again, I've changed industries, I've changed roles. So obviously, I like to try things out, like you can probably tell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one, having the opportunity to try things without necessarily committing in depth to any specific aspect has probably been the best thing. Am I constantly thinking about, if I want to grow depth versus breadth? Yes, but that's not the conversation for today. For today, I still enjoy that. I have the flexibility to be involved in different roles, and then again, just try your skills at things. So sometimes you think, oh, I'm not good with people, or my communication skills are poor, or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
there are many things that if you just tried it, you could actually do, right? So again, just challenging myself to be sure that there are multiple things that I can do is one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I really liked. And also just how it leads to a generalist career path that I want to have like in the future. So that part is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would say that ties into my learning point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is there are many things that can be done. One, done like in a company, also to done personally, right? Don't be so stuck on I have to be this in this. You get into a place. The role has changed over time. What I was focused on in my first 3 months is not what I'm focused on now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So just having like, knowing that, and also having a longer term sense of what you want to do, and just being aware that things change and you can also change and still like continue being good and learning
Yeah.
other skills along the way. I think that is something that I really enjoyed learning about this new venture that I'm in.
Great. Thank you. Oluwa Felami, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry if I did not. Um, it's asking, hi Toby, thanks for the insight so far. Are there certifications for product ops, or it's the same with product management?
So I think it's the same. When I first moved into my role, right, I searched for certifications.
Yeah.
I did not find anything that was specific to product operations. I
Mm-hmm.
saw things around one, product management, also project management.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple of courses, not certifications around operations management, but
Yeah.
then again, sometimes the operations like you have to be specific, like what kind is it, like process optimization in like a software company versus in manufacturing, etc.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things come in some cases. Like I saw scrum courses.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of these things do, again, they're all part of a bigger body of work, I would say. And so some of the skills are transferable. Like if you're a product manager, you probably do some parts of project management,
Mm-hmm.
like, and all of those kinds of things. So long story short, I haven't seen certifications. Again, I haven't checked recently because I've been trying to figure out like my job and my industry, and I think like for
Yeah.
me, those things are a lot like more pressing than
Mm-hmm.
certifications. So I don't know if there's anything current on that.
Yeah, I also don't know as well. I mean, I'm looking forward to when Toby will come and tell us she has built a product ops academy. After about 3 or 5 years in product ops, but yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Toby. I'll just give a final avenue for anyone who wants to ask any questions before we end the call today. Okay, so no final questions. Oh, we have a final one. Hi, Toby. You mentioned the importance of keeping abreast with government regulations in the fintech industry. What has been your hack slash routine to being updated in the fintech industry?
All right. So one, the company helps, right? So our comms is like very active, and when people see things that are very important, they share.
Yeah.
So it's a bit hard to miss important things because someone is going to share. But
Mm-hmm.
things that I do personally, just relying on my great colleagues, is tweaking my social media. So
Yeah.
starting to follow people who talk about tech, who talk about fintech, specifically, people in like different aspects, loan industry, like payments, whatever it is, because some of these things affect each other. You never know what will be useful. So there's that. And
Yeah.
then there's also taking time to search for things per time.
Yeah.
So for instance, at a point in time was the cashless policy, which was very important to terminal and offline payments, right? Because
Yeah.
it's okay, fine, what do we need to do? So there's a lot of work that, or like reading that went on at that time around that specific topic because it was relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm working on a project. I just try to Google this, like, CBN regulation on
Mm-hmm.
acquiring or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I make sure that when I have conversations, early on, if I would have conversation, I wouldn't understand half of it. Like that was normal. But
Yeah.
then also like just going ahead to Google some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it never really pieces together for me, Sha. It doesn't really piece together at once,
Yeah.
right? But when you have the ground base of, okay, these are the things that I need to know. Okay, so there's this license, there's this. Like
Yeah.
tomorrow when they say, oh, something has changed, it kind of provides a background to process that information
Mm-hmm.
on,
Yeah.
right? Again, fintech industry massive. There's too many parts. But part time, right? If I'm doing something that involves a switch or a processor, then I start to think about, okay, so what is doing this processor? Like, what do they do? And then
Mm-hmm.
look for resources both like internally and externally to kind of figure out
Yeah.
um, those things.
Yeah. Basically, when it comes to your table, you're ready. Start learning. Um, yeah. So that is fine. Thank you so much for that, Toby. I can imagine that with government regulations, Paystack is never a dry place. There's always something that comes up. But yes, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for making our time to be a guest
Thank you for
on the
having
product
me.
chat. It's my pleasure to have you, and I'm sure that everyone on this call can attest to having such a great 1 hour session and 1 hour chat here. So that's fantastic, and we hope that in the near future we could have you back again for this. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a lot of clapping for you and a lot of thumbs up. So yeah, thank you so much for making our time out of your busy schedule to attend. So yes, I promise that if you remain on the call, of course, there's a special offer. So the product gist will be having a stakeholder masterclass, which will be taken by me sometime um, in May. Also helping everyone here to manage their stakeholders. Of course, like we just discussed, stakeholder management is